Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar of this morning, another webinar in the series of CRA Standards Unlocked webinars. And today I have the pleasure to have with us Srinath, who is expert in CENELEC TC65X Working Group 3 on vertical standards. And he'll be talking us through the ACS technical requirements and compliance under EN IEC 62443. He's joined today by my colleague Yves Le Boucher, and I would like to inform you as well that you were all muted during the presentation, so you're not able to talk out loud, but we do invite you to submit your questions via the Q&A panel, and Srinath will have a look as many questions as possible. It might be that not all questions are replied during today's webinar, but we do intend to make your questions and answers available later on. We're recording the webinar, so we will also share with you the recording afterwards. So without further ado, I think I can give the floor to Yves right away. Yves, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Els, for the introduction and explanations. Well, just briefly, my name is Yves Le Boucher. I am the technical project manager supporting TC65X and therefore also the CRA activities which are covered in the working group 3. I'm very happy to have our rapporteur for the activities with us on board, Srinath from Internet of Trust. I personally will try to support in at least giving some answers already in the chat, so afterwards sampling, collecting. And with that already, I will head over to Srinath. Srinath, I think it's your floor. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Yves, and thank you, Els, for the brief introduction. And thank you, everyone, for joining and having your time here on this webinar. And welcome, everyone. Let's dive in. So here we are on the topic ACS technical requirements. I think it's deeply awaited and with representing CLC 65X Working Group 3 on the vertical standards. One sec. Yeah, so it's a brief introduction about me. So I'm the lead cybersecurity consultant at Internet of Trust based in Paris. I'm leading industrial cybersecurity activities and for more than 3 years. And I also have an experience in the process automation projects at Schneider Electric Systems India Private Limited, which is more than 9 years of experience. And I'm also a senior ISC member, and I have my master's in computer science, cybersecurity specializations. And I also have bachelor's and diploma in electronics and communication and electronics and instrumentation. And I know all this doesn't make you interested, but I'm the lead reporter for CLC TC65X Working Group 3 to develop the OT harmonized standards, the CENELEC, and collaborating with Working Group 3 along with the conveners, Judith and Guy Rusubo. This is my geographical map where I used to commission the projects, worked in Dubai, Thailand, Abu Dhabi, all these oil and gas and petrochemical industries. Currently now I'm invested in France and working on this harmonized standards. So this is about me. And this is about our group, what we are trying to achieve here. So TLC TC65X Working Group 3 Cybersecurity, so established in February 2020. The scope is to observe the cybersecurity activities with the ISO, and this is a European mirror group of TC65. So the TC65 is responsible for generating the IEC standards, updating new editions, so on. The Working Group 3 is mirror committee of this group. So the main responsibility is to adopt the IEC 62443 series for the European single market in terms that to prepare it for CRA. So it has also liaison with JTC 13, WG8 and for Red Act, and WG9 for CRA for the horizontal group members. They also have liaison with 44X for the safety of machinery and WG2 group. The conveners, as I told us before, Judith Rosebo and Kai Weber from Siemens and from ABB and Siemens respectively. And you can see my name at the end. It's a reporter, Srinath Narayana, and we are happy that currently we are 118 members working in this group. We are actively contributing to prepare the standards for CRA. So brief introduction about EN IEC 6443 series, who are not aware of. This is the framework, complete framework, and you can see there are general policies and procedures and a list of standards for 3-Cs for the systems and 4-1 for the components. And also there is an evaluation, and I also think the 6-2 is now currently published. I did not update, but this is also published now. So this is a brief introduction about the series who are not aware of. So this is an existing IEC standards where TC65X is also produce edition 2. TC65 also produce edition 2 on this international standard. But TC65X took this existing IEC standards to prepare for the CRA. So that was the idea. So this is to map, I'm not aware how many of you attended the previous webinar, so I gave an introduction about the broad verticals, how the mapping is done. So this is a quick overview of last presentation that we took, as I told, all these harmonized standards for the OT was based on the EN IEC 62443 series. So it is necessary to do the mapping or the gap analysis to the existing CRA standards and to the CRA standards with the existing IEC 62443 series. So since 6 CRA is for the product based on the risk based, so we did the gap analysis. So we know from CRA Annex 1 Part 1 for the cybersecurity requirements, Annex 1 Part 2 for the vulnerability handling, and other Annex 2 for information, Annex 1 technical documentation. So all this needs to be mapped to 4-1 because it's a product secure development life cycle. So all these can be mapped. And also we need to come up with the 4-2, which having the requirements where the gaps are mapped with the existing 4-2. So as a result of this, so from the existing 4-2, taking the international standard existing 4-2 and comparing with the requirements of the CRA, definitely we found the gap. And that's where we came up with the two broad vertical, which is 4-1 and 4-2. So this existing 4-1 and 4-2 is come up with a new form for CRA in terms of name broad vertical, 4-1 and 4-2, and also 3-2 currently, which is now is in hold. So if you take the relevant CRA parts of the IEC 4 series, so 4-2 is for the technical requirements for the IEC components. The scope of the product is components. And 4-1, of course, we apply for the security development lifecycle. And 3-3 is for the system requirements of system levels. And 4-1, secure development lifecycle requirements. And 6-2, we need for security evaluation of the 4-2 because CRA is not only requirements, but also testing. And also we need profiles. So we have list of profiles under OT, like six verticals. So we also need 1-5. So as we see, all these are mapped to the IEC, existing ISO 62443 because all these standards are basis on 62443 series. So we are not deviating from the existing series. So to highlight this. So as I told, after the CRA gap analysis with the existing 62443, they came up with two standards, 4-1, 4-2 prAA, which is nothing but the broad verticals. So we have two broad verticals, 4-1 and 4-2, and also there is a plan for 3-3, which is currently not part of the standardization, but is part of the future work, which the working group 3 is planning to bring up for the systems. So why these broad verticals are important? Because many of you can ask these questions, so we can directly go into the profiles. The importance is that to ensure the development of the verticals on the profiles to have a consistency between all the verticals. So if we found the gap analysis with the CRA, if we come up with this 4-1 and 4-2, it's very easy to develop the n number of verticals under these profiles because to ensure the consistency and they are still based on we are not breaking the series and it's and also maintain for the coherence between the between the IEC 62443s and the broad verticals. And they provide a solid basis with PT1 and PT2 and PT3. Why do I say this? 4-1 and 4-2, these two broad verticals, they are not only ensure the consistency between the existing IEC series and CRA, but also with the harmonized standards from PT1 and PT2. This gap analysis is also done between these three deliverables. So that's the importance of the broad verticals. And as you see, so there is a 4-1 broad vertical, 4-2 broad vertical, and then there is a list of product categories which were already under the standardization request. So you see firewall, routers, modems, physical interfaces, SIM, network management systems, and VPN. So all will be based from this broad vertical 4-2. And you can see these are the classes of the verticals, so and also the work item numbers. So class 1 for routers, modems, switches, physical interfaces, SIM, network management systems, and VPN, and class 2 is only firewall, IDS, and IPS. So what is the progress? So what is happening and where we are now with all these things? So from IEC 62443 series, from the original IEC, we developed the broad vertical 4-2, which is called A11 2020. And also we developed two broad verticals, right? 4-1 and 4-2, which has been sent for the inquiry from 17th March. So it is in process. Now currently the organizations are commenting through their national committees. This is in progress. So under this, we see we're still monitoring the PT2 activities. So because we need to be consistent and coherent with horizontals. And so we adapted the existing requirements, we adapted the rationals, new requirements are created, updated the applicability criteria, updated the evaluation methodology, because in existing IEC we don't have the testing incorporated. So from 6-2 we incorporated the evaluation methodologies, defined the evaluation artifacts for each component requirements, incorporated the test modules, because as part of the conformance of the harmonized standard. And for 4-1 is same. So these two documents are sent together. So still monitoring PT1 for the other one to maintain the coherence. Also monitoring the dependencies of PT3 for vulnerability handling. Here we updated the applicability process, added the requirements based on the intended use, security context, applicability as part of the CRA, cybersecurity risk management practice, and also the artifacts required for 4-1 for the development lifecycle. And for the vertical standards, what is the progress? So they were completely based on this standard, broad vertical 4-2. So all are based on this broad vertical. So call for experts already done. The start of the work has been done. And also we have submitted one draft for EC assessment this week. The first draft, which is for the firewall alone, to get an idea how the approach and the process, and also test the broad vertical, how we have accomplished in the verticals. So currently commission is assessing and we are waiting for the feedback on this. So this is the current status. Yeah. And there is a hand raised. I don't know. Or we have answered all the questions at the end. Else?
Else, how do you want to manage?
Yes, you're free to pick questions if you think it's a good moment to do so,
Yep.
or at the end. Please, yes.
I think before I'm jumping on to this, yes, I would like to answer questions if you have.
All right, give me a second. It's Mr. or Mrs. Xian that had a question, raised their hand, right?
Yep.
So, allow, sorry. You should be able for you to talk now, else, Miss.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
He or she should mute herself. If it was a mistake, it happens sometimes. Take your
Yeah,
time to submit questions via Q&A.
exactly. Or allowed already the hand, so maybe it was a mistake.
Yes, I think
Otherwise,
so.
you can also post your questions into the chat. We will have a close look on it.
Yep. So in that case, I think I will take the time to answer the questions at the end. Feel free to type your questions in the chat. I can reply after the presentation, or Eves is here if you can answer those questions. Thank you. And if you take the list of deliverables from TC65X working group 3, these are the things. So broad verticals, as I mentioned, 4-1, prAA, and 4-2, and also 3-3, which is planned, which is not for standardization request, but is planned, but is currently right now hold test. And these are the list of vertical profiles which I need to submit. So firewalls, -1, network management -2, which physical and virtual network interfaces -3, and private network 4, and modems 5, and security information systems. As I told, we submitted part 1 to commission to review for the mature draft of the commission to review the approach, and because that will be a basis for other verticals. And also, we also want to test how broad vertical is mostly significant to these verticals. So that's the quick overview, and this is from the broad vertical side. Okay, now we can jump to the verticals. Yeah. So keeping in mind what is a broad vertical and how it is developed, now we also need to develop the vertical standards, right? So to understand better for this, we just go directly into this diagram. I hope this diagram is more familiar because this can be seen from the draft guidance from the commission. And that's explaining what is the core functionality, what is the ancillary functionality, how the core functionality is harmonized standard support, and what is the presumption of conformity, and so on. So I would like to start from this diagram, and you see what is if you take any product, so there is a core functionality, there is only one core functionality, and there can be multiple other functionalities, right? So what does the core functionality means? A core functionality refers to the product manufacturer and the technical capabilities. Without it would not be able to meet the intended purpose. It's very clear. So that's the only one core functionality of a product, that it has its main functions and technical features to define for its intended use. So if you understand this clearly, let's go now next. Take an example of a firewall. So there is for a firewall, we have the core functionality, and we also will have the additional functionality. So what is the core functionality of the firewall? The firewalls are the products with the digital elements that protect the connected network from a system or a network from unauthorized access for monitoring and restricting data communication traffic. So this is the primary function of the core functionality of the firewall. But a firewall can also have other functionalities which cannot be predicted but is state of the art. It depends on manufacturer to manufacturer, the product state of the art, and so on. For example, I took a network traffic analytics, a super dashboard, load balancing to between the networks, and so on. So this can be another functionalities, but it depends product to product. So this core functionality, which is already known, which Commission has provided from this comitology document for each and every product, which is mentioned in the Annex 3 product categories. For firewalls, this is the core functionality. So if who identifies this core functionality? If they having these documents, the manufacturer take his product. Okay, my product belongs to this core functionality. Okay, my product is a firewall product, and I have this core functionality like this. And I also have the list of other functionalities. Who identifies this is, of course, is the product manufacturer who identifies the other functionalities. Okay. Now, in order to get the presumption of conformity or also to address these core functionalities, we have these vertical standards, right? So for firewall, I would say we have a VR50001 to address these requirements for the core functionalities. And also the document needs to able to address the other functionalities, which are also state of the art, right? So we are very sure that core functionality can be addressed, but how we are going to manage the address, which is the state of the art? Okay, so that one we can discuss later, but right now we can focus on the core functionality, how this can be achieved with this vertical standard EN 50701. Okay, as I told, so there is a core functionality of a product and the other functionalities. So when the product meets the essential requirements, so the harmonized standards, which are published in the OGU, the site, when the product manufacturer applies, when he satisfies all the requirements of the core functionality, the product manufacturer get the presumption of conformity. So this is clear, and also product manager able to do the address the other functionalities with this document. As I told, we will cover this topic in the future slide. That is there. So there are two things. So core functionality, harmonized standards, achieving the presumption of conformity. Let's focus on the firewall and the core functionality. So we see core firewalls are the product with digital elements. We know the core functionality of the product. We are clear, and we can address this with this standard. So what is inside this standard? So we have 6 clauses. Clause 1, scope, clause 2, normative reference. So in our case, we said already all these OT harmonized standards are based on the broad vertical EN IEC 62443 2 AREA. And also we have terms and definitions and abbreviations. And clause 4, product context, that's where we start, how to do. Clause 5, technical security requirements to address the core functionality and also the other functionalities. And clause 6, how to test these requirements. And there is also Annex A to do the risk assessment, because CRA is a risk-based assessment, and we need to arrive to the technical requirements based on the security analysis. And there is an important Annex Z, to map the CRA essential requirements with these technical requirements here. So which is CRA essential requirements will satisfy the technical requirement. So this is the complete structure of each harmonized standard. To my understanding, this will be a structure for all the harmonized standards, irrespective of OT or consumer products or any Senelec standards or AC standard. This is the structure. This is commonly agreed between us, and this will be followed. And even OT standards, although they are based on EN IEC 62443 standards, we respect this structure, and we match this structure. Okay. Now we can directly go on to class 4, product context, which is where we start, is starting point to create everything. So in class 4, we see 4-1 product functions, 4-2 product architecture, 4-3 operational environment, and 4-4 distribution of functions if the security functions are distributed in cloud or so on. 4-5, who are the users of this product? And as a result, at 4.6, you get the use cases, reference cases, which will help us to do the security analysis. Okay. So all these examples are related to firewall, because the firewall vertical standard, we have advanced more, and as I informed, I have already submitted to EC, so that if you see any examples, it's all related to the firewall product. We can discuss on this and how we approach this concept to arrive to the technical requirements. So as I told, we have to establish the context of the product. So all these activities as done for the development of the standard. Okay, is not for the manufacturer to do these activities. In the standard 50770-1 for the firewall, we have performed these activities This will help the manufacturer have this list of set of technical requirements which he has to apply. So establishing the context. So defining the product functions. So what is the product function of the firewall based on the core functionalities? So all these address based on the core functionality again. So define the product functions, and based on the product core functionality, what is the assets we are trying to protect? So we have to protect the core configuration data, audit data, and the software or firmware. And what are the interfaces associated with? Configuration interface, diagnostic interface, firmware update interface, which can be virtual or physical, or which can be local or remote. So establish the product context and establish the environment. Okay, so where this product can be placed, in which type of environment. Again, we go back to the broad vertical. This is based on Annex P, product security context category. So EN IEC 62434-1, you see Annex P, you have a product security context category where you see the level of physical access, it's public, limited, or control. The level of communication access, public, limited, or control, and the users. Users come in the next clause. And so we took the inspiration from 4-1 as a basis and defined what is the operational environment for a product can be. If, for example, for the physical access, a product is physically exposed or easily reachable without any access instruction. We also managed to provide the examples of list of the levels of physicals in the draft. So product is installed in an unlocked cabinet in the public areas. It means the product is physically accessible to the environment. The same for the communication access. So you have public, limited, and control. The product configuration diagnostic interface is easily accessible without any restriction of network. Example, a product configuration or diagnostics of firmware update interfaces are directly accessible via internet, for example. So this, likewise, the draft also contains the examples for limited controlled environments. So we establish the product functions architecture, we establish the environment where the product can be placed, and who are the users? So who is going to interact with the products, right? So this is also based on Annex P, product security context, EN IEC 62434-1. And if you see in Annex, there are three categories: ordinary, instructed, and skilled. So instructed is someone who is trained, and skilled who has potential knowledge and advanced knowledge to operate to the product. Since for the OT environment is always it's B2B clients, system integrators, and they are cyber tech architects, OT specialists, so on. So in our vertical standard, we consider the ordinary users are not anticipated, because ordinary users are someone who has no knowledge of the product. So ordinary users are not anticipated. So for the risk security analysis, we took the examples of instructed and skilled users. And for us, it's the knowledge is same, and who is capable to install, configure, and update the firewall policies, and knowledge of detection mechanism and analysis and attack patterns. And we also gave an examples of who can be, what an instructor and a skilled person can be able to do in the draft. So with the, as I told, with the establishing of the product context, what we are trying to achieve is to identify the use cases. So we came up with the two use cases which can be broadly applied to any product. It's nothing but hardware-based firewall deployed in an OT environment and administered by an instructor or a skilled user. And then use case 2 can be a virtual firewall, which is running on a host environment, like a software or a container deployed in an OT environment and administered by an instructor and skilled user. So these two use cases can be applied to any product and any product context and these kind of users. So we took these two use cases to do the security analysis. So before doing the security analysis, we have to again do the applicability assessments. So again, this is part of not for the manufacturer. It has been done for the development of the vertical draft. So we have done as a working group 3, we have done this activity in behalf of manufacturer. So if you see Annex C, EN IEC 62434-1, this is the applicability assessment, and we have 3 processes. So we have the list of requirements. So we have the AR1, AR2, AR3. So AR3 is nothing but you take the product in front of you, you take all the requirements. Okay, I take the hardware firewall, and I check, okay, whether this requirement is applicable or not. So if I take any virtual hardware and if there is a hardware authenticator, definitely this requirement is not applicable to me. It's just putting physical looking, checking one by one. And the second one is AR2, is legal obligatory requirements. Honestly, there were very minor requirements for like system use notification requirement that if it's whether it's applicable in European regulations. Because this IEC series is also applicable in Euro, Americas, and North American countries. There are some requirements which are applicable, but some requirements not applicable in Europe. So we can just clear out those requirements. And finally, AR3, security risk assessment, which is actually a security analysis in this draft. And then we come up with the list of applicable requirements. And we also gave the reasoning why this requirement is not applicable. This is a visual representation. So you take the broad vertical. We did the list of took all the requirements based on the based on the requirement profiles obligation. You come up with a list of requirements, and you did the applicability criteria AR1. We removed some requirements, and we did the requirement regulatory obligations, removed some requirements, and finally you do the risk assessment. Okay, based on this risk assessment, I don't need these requirements. So because it's already managed by the environment. For example, if there is a controlled environment, I don't need this requirement anymore, for example. And then you come up with the list of set of applicable requirements. So this is done is part of the draft, development of the draft. So this is an example for AR1 and AR2. So if you see hardware-based firewall, so we took the list of component requirements and then try, okay, this requirement is applicable for hardware firewall. And when I see hardware security for authenticators, definitely it is not applicable for the virtual firewall. And there is also statement of applicability, why it is not applicable. And if you take a mobile code example, so this is not applicable for both the hardware firewall or a virtual firewall because the core functionality of the product is just to protect the network, but it's not describing about the virtualization or Docker containers and so on. So it's not applicable. So how this applicability can be done? So if you take again, go to the broad vertical, for every requirement, there is a section called applicability. And the section says the requirement is applicable for all components that supports more than one fixed level, for example. And then you can just apply, okay, take an example use case, hardware-based firewall. Okay, this is applicable or not. So likewise, this activity is done for the development of the draft. Now, finally, AR3, as I said, it's a risk assessment. So we call it security analysis in the draft. For us, this inspiration here is the threat inputs. The threat inputs are nothing but the threat catalog from PT2. So WG9, PT2. So this, why we do this? To maintain the coherence between the horizontals and the verticals. So we took the threat from the PT2. So we took each of the threat, we gave the description and defined the risks. What is the risk associated with the threat? And we took the product context, right? So we established the product context. What is the environment and the users? So users here, we already described, we are going to consider instructed and skilled. And the environment, let's take physical access, public, limited and control. Let's take the communication access, public, limited and control. Sometimes it's independent, is irrespective of any communication access, any level of communication access, this is applicable. So, and then is finally the mitigations. So for this thread, for this public context, if the product is placed in the public context and irrespective of irrespective of level of communication access, these three requirements are needed to mitigate. Similarly, if the product is placed in limited environment, these two are required. And this control, you don't need, just 6.1 is required. So for the manufacturer, for the core functionality, the document is already given the list of technical requirements that the manufacturer has to satisfy. The manufacturer has small freedom to choose if based on the product context. But if the product is placed in public, definitely he has to satisfy all these. If the product is limited, okay, I will satisfy only these two requirements, and so on, so on. Okay. So what are the constraints? Let's comes to the constraint. What is the constraints to the manufacturer and how it can be achieved, and what is the dependencies between the broad vertical. So we again go back to the diagram, which is coming from the standard. Okay, so there is if you take any product, there is a core functionality and another function. Okay, so these two can be addressed by both core functionality and the other function can be addressed by PR, fee, and the draft, because there are three constraints. One, CBSE 1, which is for technical security requirements, CBSE 2, core functionality, and CBSE 3, applicability. And you come up with the list, and we came up with the list of vertical specific security requirements. Okay, this is to address only core functionality. But the CBSE 1 is going to trigger the CCSE 3, which is software development lifecycle, which enforces the 4-1. And also 4-2 in 4-2, there is also a list of clause 5 requirements, which can be derived specific to the verticals and also can be addressed for the other functionalities. So if you take how to do this, so you take a 4-5, you take this draft for the firewall, you take this draft, you have the list of technical requirements, which is more specific to the core functionality. And also there is a normative reference to the 4-2 to address all the other functionality requirements. So how it can be done? Let's go to the diagram again. So I won't explain before that. There is CBSE 1, CBSE 2, CBSE 3. Technical requirements has to be shall event according to 4-2, clause 1. And core functionality. The firewall shall implement the requirement listed in 5.2. So both hardware and according to the product security context. So that one. And the applicability. So for the core functionality, the manufacturer does not have any freedom to do AR1 and AR2, but except he can do the product security context. Like as I told, it can be for public, or if the product is placed in the public environment, choose this requirement. But there is no taking the applicability criteria, just looking at the product, because it's already done at the standard development for the core functionality. So AR1, AR3 is not allowed for the manufacturer with respect to the core functionality. So that's what it is. So firewall core functionality. So as a part of the development team, we have already done the applicability process based on Annex C 4-1. So what the manufacturer can do is just to do the product's context, just to select whether my product is placed in public environment or limited or controlled environment. Based on this, choose the requirements and do the AR2 regulation based on the obligatory regulations, like whether this requirement is applicable in this country, in this context, and so on. And then you come up with a list of applicable requirements and not applicable requirements. This is the only freedom I have for the functionalities. Other than that, the manufacturer is obliged to implement all the requirements based on the core functionalities. But there is also other functionalities. For the other functionalities, the manufacturer is able to do complete applicability process. Like this. So you can do all the other functionalities, take the applicability process, do AR1, AR2, AR3, and then you come up with a list of applicable requirements. So you have all the freedoms. The same process what we did for core functionality, the manufacturer will do the same process for the other functionalities. So if you go to the technical requirements, you see in the draft, in the vertical draft, you see a section called product security context applicability. So for every requirement, you say that this requirement shall apply product security context with public physical access independent of the communication access, to help the manufacturer to choose the context based on this diagram. So this is to give an idea. And as I told, to other functionalities, so firewalls, other products, so so we'll address requirements more specific to the from 4-2, and for the other functionalities, we are this draft has a normative reference to this draft 4-2, the broad vertical, to address all these other functionalities. So you get a complete requirements for the whole set, like a package, so you can address the core functionality, other functionalities with just with this one draft, having a normative reference to 4-2. So that's what this is our ultimate approach, um, to help the manufacturer to give the list of mandated requirements for the core functionalities, and also able to address what the manufacturer promised for its product to its customers to address the other functionalities to 4-2. So you get a complete set, and this is the complete effort to do this broad vertical, um, to maintain the industry, and also maintain the consistency, and so on. I hope it is really helpful to the manufacturer, and that's what we are trying to achieve. And to explain for the other functionalities what you have to follow, do the applicability process as same we did for the core functionalities, and you come up with a list of set of requirements applicable for applicable for other functionalities, and also why they are not applicable. You have a list, a document saying why is not statement of applicability, why it is not applicable. Okay. So in firewall, you see the core functionality. So we have the two profiles. One is the hardware profile, and another one is the virtual profile. So if you see the core functionalities are addressed in 5-2 and 5-3 subclasses, and also 5-2 and 5-4. And to address the other functionalities, there's a normative reference to 4-2 broad verticals, class 4-11, do the applicability process, and identify the list of requirements. So for other functionalities, you have to perform AR1, AR2, and AR3. Eves, yes.
Um, yeah, of course. Just finish your point. I saw that we have in the Q&A more and more questions.
Okay.
So just wanted also to flag it to else whether maybe we can spend once you've finished here on the slides address a few of them, the first ones, and maybe then have still enough time at the end to answer the rest of these. Some of the questions are referring to the status of citation presumption of conformity of the -4-1 and -4-2.
Mm.
So, I don't want to interrupt the flow also for you, Srinath, but maybe I read some of the first questions
Okay.
and we go through them. I would leave the first answer to you, and if there's anything else to add or unclear, then I try to jump in. Should we proceed like this? Because it would be a pity to have not answered the questions, I would say.
You're on right time, to be honest, because
All right.
your next questions.
Oh, like it would have been planned, to be honest.
Yeah,
Um,
so you can shoot me questions because
yeah.
I'm participating.
Should I read some of the first questions? Are you okay with this?
Yes, of course.
Uh,
I can read or you can read. It's okay.
Then,
yeah,
then, then I do the first ones and then let's see how we proceed.
yeah.
So the first question is from Mr. or Mrs. in that sense, I can't see it.
Mhm.
Bispering, since it is an EN 62443 standard, so
Mhm.
EN IEC 62443 standard to be correct,
Mhm.
does that mean that the series, those two parts,
Mhm.
-4-1, -4-2,
Mhm.
will show the presumption of conformity for the CRA for IACS manufacturers? That's the question.
Okay. So the existing IN EEC, EN IEC series, there is no testing or evaluation part. There is only a list of requirements. As I told, we took this existing IEC 624 series, did the gap analysis with the CRA because CRA needs the evaluation, the conformity assessment. So in broad verticals, which is mean 4-1 prAA and PR 4-2 PRA contains the testing part. It has the conformity assessment part, having the list of artifacts, test cases, test modules, and so on.
But then maybe already adding maybe and giving an answer to further questions. I hope
Mhm.
it fits into the context. So far, both parts of the series. Let's say it differently. Only the verticals that Srinath showed, those six parts with the 57701-1 to the dash 6,
Mhm.
will give you the final presumption of conformity. Not to be misunderstood, the broad verticals only are not supposed currently to uh, give presumption of conformity. Also, I think this answers further questions regarding this. So, next question from Mr. François Legal. What are PT1, PT2, and PT3 deliverables? I think that's an easy one.
Yeah, PT1, PT2, I think they have a set of standards like 40,000 series. PT1 is on the cyber the list of security principles. PT2 is on the essential requirements, threat catalogs, and PT3 is the vulnerability handling. This is nothing but PT is nothing but the project teams. In Working Group 9 is very big organization. They're having this big architecture. So they divided their group into three project teams and they have their associated deliverables. So this is not part of my presentation, which has been done previous time.
Yeah,
So yeah,
for that question, I definitely invite Monsieur Legal. I think either in French you can see the state of play of those horizontal standards for the CIA, PT1, PT3, PT3, PT2, PT3, developed by the JTC 13. Also, description in the webinars of cyberstance. I also invite you, maybe later you can drop me a message to the contacts and I can share the link where you find further informations on the description. What is PT1 to PT3 umbrella? What
Mhm.
are the timelines and who takes care of these activities?
Exactly.
The next one I would read is from Jérôme Hamel. Will the 5-1 profiles cover default products or only vertical products?
You mean the 5C, 500C?
Yeah, I was also a bit wondering about the 5-1 profiles. What is
Maybe.
meant exactly?
Yeah. If I understood correctly, it should be 50 series. So they only cover they cover the not the default products, that particular product specifics. For example, dash one is for firewall network management, so they don't cover the default products. For the default products, it's 4-2 is the broad vertical. You can just apply them.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have nothing to add. Then else I would read the next one and then maybe hand over to you.
Mhm.
Nicolas Guibault, is it expected that the dash 4 dash 2 cited in the OJ as broad vertical? I think we already give somehow an answer, or only for presumption of conformity for verticals. In other words, will it be possible to use the dash 4 dash 2 to get presumption of conformity for a default category product?
Um, This is a tricky question, but currently I think Commission has answered their point of view. I would like to stand with the working group 3 point of view that broad vertical also the 4-2 also contain an exit set. The group is pushing to get cited for the default products, but currently it's in a discussion and I don't have a concrete answer for this.
Work in progress, let's say
Yeah,
it this way,
work in
in that
progress.
sense. Else, yes, please. Then
Yes, thank you, Yves. There is also another question from Jerome. He's asking if there will be a link between the profiles and the risk analysis in the 4-1.
Can you repeat the question?
So, will there be a link between the profiles and the risk analysis in the 4-1?
Um, uh, yeah, so the in 4-1, the risk assessment is just a process. What are the threat inputs, what you have to do, what is the threat model, how the risks should be assessed, what the risks should be mitigated. So it's only a process. But in the verticals, we took this process as an approach and we did the activity as I told in security analysis part. we took the actually so far as the threat model input. So threat model input is nothing but the PT2. We took the threat model and we derive the risk from the threat. So this is nothing but the following the process of 4-1 and coming up with a list of mitigation and what is done in the Annex A. There is a link. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Srinath. Another question here from Aline, who wants to know if the risk assessment process is in accordance with 7 cybersecurity risk assessment and integration of products and components of the EU CRA guideline draft that is saying at, I think it means at page 154, that the CRA does not provide for the transfer of cybersecurity risk or responsibility to users or third parties.
As a part of the reporter group, and when you see the security analysis, the risk assessment whole is an informative part. There is no any guidelines that you have to follow this risk assessment, this kind, this type. It's always informative and it depends on the group to group. So we followed this methodology to derive these requirements, and this methodology is explained in the draft annex how we arrived it. And also for the this is only for the core functionality, right? For the other functionalities, the manufacturer is still to do his own risk assessment methodology or own type of assessment. So this is one part. I'm not sure. I mean, the guidance, what is the reference? But this question I can take it back and then answer it better. To be honest, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Srinath. There's another question from Torsten. He wants to know if there will be a PREN 50770-X specifically for HMIs or for monitoring and control units. And if not, can you recommend other PRENs 50770 standards that we should prioritize for such a system?
Currently, we don't have the standardization request for HMI. I think it should come from. Yves, can you answer for me where it should come from the new standardization request?
Yeah, so somehow HMI not covered yet under the SREC, then we would have to see whether this is for CRA 2.0 or so. If I recall the latest also presentations from the commissions at the CIA standards unblocked tour. So also a bit doing of marketing. So if you're looking into further commission answers also from the commission, we have a commission representation in those workshops also streamed online. So you find many of these, or some of these answers also there. But to answer the question directly, so I spoke a bit too long, so I lost my train of thoughts. Yeah, somehow that could be something that is in the revised version of CRA planned around end of year, but no clear dates so far. Still trying to cover all essentials from the CRA 1.0, so to say. No.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Yves. There is a compliment for you, Srinath, from Marvin. He says, thank you for the great and clear presentation. Thank you, Marvin. And in addition, he has a question. He's asking if several verticals like firewall will have a Sentinel and Etsy version. How do I know which one to use? I understand that this is a bit IT versus OT, but there are several borderline cases like city networks, and I would like to have a clear criteria or recommendations.
Yeah. I was expecting this question because for all the presentation, I get this question. There is always an Etsy standard, what I should use and what I should. So the manufacturer is always free to use any standard, but what we are trying to achieve is whatever the harmonized standards from the OT, that it depends on their intended use. Okay. So if your if your product is want to be placed in an OT environment and the intended use is for the operational technology, OT harmonized standards is most likely to be used, but still it's not an obligation that because harmonized standards are always a voluntary standards. If I would have in your place, if my intended use in the OT environment is for the OT technology, I would go for the harmonized standards from the OT. And also, from the industry point of view, EN IEC series are well established and it's been long time established, and and also not to disrupt the market. For the operation technologies to apply these standards is more aligned in my understanding. So this is my approach, and I wouldn't block you. Okay, you shouldn't use OHC standard, and that's not the case, and that's not the intention. It's just the intended use and what we are trying to achieve from it. So both standards are available. And we also planned one activity to check the requirements between HC and OT harmonized standards. Because right now we do a coherence, and we do meet and we share our thoughts to have common terminologies, common structure, because these are harmonized between HC and OT standards. So we do this interaction. We also planning to just to check these requirements, how much they are equivalent, how much there is a gap. It's just an internal activity, but there's nothing to do with it at the end of the stage. It's just the intended use. And I did a presentation in joint HC meeting how these standards are differentiated based on their intended use and not based on the technology or the capabilities. The capabilities and technologies at the end, it's always the same. A firewall is a firewall, even if you use it in a HC or you use in an operating environment. But where you are going to use, to whom you are going to use, it's that matters. So I hope this question answers to everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, Srinath. Another question from Nicola.
Yeah.
He mentions that you referred on one of your slides to context, user
Yeah.
or products defined in 4-1, but
Mhm.
4-1 will not be cited in the
Yeah.
OJ according to the previous slides. So how can this be used to get the presumption of conformity? He's asking.
Yeah, 4-1 is not planned for citation, and but the difference what we took, since these standards are based on IEC 62443 series, right? So they have the reference to this is to take what to inspire from this, what is the context. So to align with the 62443, because the profiles are based on 62443. So we just took the inspiration from operational environment. It's nothing to do with the citation or so on. This is to do the risk assessment. At the end, the security analysis of the draft is informative. So it's nothing to do with the citation.
Okay, thank you. He has an additional question, I think, to this. He's asking if this 4-1 applicability replaces the security level from legacy IEC 62443-4-2.
Yeah, I understand. There's a security level but in broad vertical, we do still maintain the security levels just to be aligned with them. But there is no any significance. The level actually based in existing IC, the level is based on the threat actors. But here in broad verticals, what we come up with 4-1 exists current 4-1. The levels are based on security. I mean the risk levels. So in vertical straps, we don't have the security level. So we have the list of because it's we have the list of security requirements, and this needs to be satisfied. And whether this will be removed in broad verticals, currently we don't know, because all these whatever we developed 4-1, 4-2 is to align with the existing in the future because we also have some time meeting with TC65 to merge bring these drafts to the international level. So currently I don't have this answer. It's under progress or discussion. Maybe it will be solved in the future. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Srinath. And then Pavan is asking if the broader vertical OT standard from October 2026 then applies as the applicable Type C standard, or must one go directly to 4-2A11 plus their own risk analysis?
I didn't understand this question. Yves, are you able to understand this question? If you can rephrase for me.
So yeah, I was looking into typing other answers in the chat. Please repeat your question. Catch me up.
So it's the question of Pavan.
Yeah.
Does the broader vertical OT standard from October 2026 then apply as the applicable Type C standard, or must one go directly to 4-2 Amendment 11 plus their own risk analysis?
For me personally, that's the amended version, so A11.
Mm.
So yeah, I was wondering about this question. So maybe Pavan, if he's able to speak, could elaborate maybe on his question. Does the broader vertical OT standard, which is meant,
Right.
because there's another one with the with the dash 4-2 then. Well, what's the difference in the description of the standards there, meant? If not, we can also type it in answer. So for me, the dash 4-2 A11 is the applicable one. It's the only broad vertical together with the dash 4-1 prAA that I know. So the other one meant or questioned here is a bit unclear to me.
We can take it back, this question.
Exactly, and I type in between and we can continue. The next one is also Pavan.
Yes, maybe it's a bit linked because he says, is it possible to demonstrate that the
Mhm.
Amendment 11 requirements in a harmonized way with the cybersecurity requirements of the Machinery Regulation 2023 1230
Mhm.
Annex 3, or is there a duplication of effort?
Okay, I think this question we have to take it back and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, if this is a duplication of effort, hmm,
Mm.
I wouldn't dare to have a final opinion on this,
Yeah.
because they are much more legal experts or than regulation experts then. But I would say we during the preparation of CRA, together with the commission and then with the industry stakeholders in the SHRAC, I think those kind of identification would have been made. So, in any careful comment, I would say there is no duplication of effort, but we can take back and elaborate, evaluate that question a bit more in detail.
Yeah.
Somehow a bit tricky to answer.
Yeah, we have Pavan's email address because you registered, so you have the possibility to come back to.
Then
Uh,
I offer that we are happy to take this question back and have
mm,
a well-prepared answer to this.
of course, great. Thank you. There's a question from Takeshi. He or she, sorry, I don't know, is asking if we can use the EN IEC 62443-4 for default category products.
Yes, definitely. That's the idea. So if 4-2 for the default products, yes.
Okay, that's clear. And then there is a comment about 5-1. Johanna saying that it refers to IEC 62443-5-1. I don't know why, but yeah, that makes sense. And then Steve is asking if there is an intention to create one or more parts of the 50770 that covers PLCs or RTUs, etc.
No, currently we don't have a standardization request for PLC. So it's only, as you see, it's only for firewalls and only these kind of products. So standardization request, as Eve mentioned before, it has to come through, as he said, CRA 2.0. Maybe it can be included.
Okay, thank you, Srinath. And then Philip wants to know or is
Mhm.
asking you if you can indicate how the 62443-3-3 should be positioned when it applies and for whom. When a system integrator builds a system for a customer, offers a system on the market or otherwise.
Currently, I told this 3-3 is on hold and it's not part of the standardization request. It's only a future work plan.
Mhm.
So it is to address to the systems. So it's the system integrators, obviously, or the machinery operators, so on. But we once we start, once we finish this activity, and if you have standardization request for 3-3, and then I can give you more concrete answers on this. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Um, I see many, many questions again from Pavan. Should we go over all of these? I think they might be linked to the other questions, so I'm not sure if we want to go through all these.
Uh,
You can at least see if there are some let's say, general interest
Mm.
to the group here.
Well, it's hard for me to judge that, I must admit.
Or Pavan is also asking, yeah, you should get the speaking right. But Pavan, I would say we make for your questions or for all these not being answered today, or we are not able to answer today, to have a catalog and answer them directly by email to you. And also then you can also summarize your questions after the webinar and get then in touch with Srinath and myself. But seeing the amount of the questions, which is great, I suggest that we do the separate stuff then somehow offline by email if you don't mind. No? Um,
Maybe the other question of Torsten is of use for a more broader public. He asks if Senelec can assist manufacturers in developing a PREN 50770-X for an HMI or a monitoring control unit. That is to say, can several manufacturers join forces working through a dedicated working group to ultimately draft such a proposal for a 62443-5 profile?
Yeah, I think this Eves, we need your support
Mm.
because there are many manufacturers who wants the new standardization request many products like PLCs, HMI.
yeah.
So
I
what?
was also trying to at least give a sense of answer to that question in the chat.
Mm,
Was it announced? What is it? What does it contain? This is more or less unclear. I was about to type an answer. If something, a sector application-wise is addressed by question which is not covered under the existing standardization request for the CRA, then often the answer is we will take this on board into the findings discussions for a revised next version of the CRA. It's not defined what does it exactly contain, and it's not further described when it will start. Somehow that's the bridging of yes, everything that's currently not covered will be addressed most possibly then in another version. But for today, unfortunately, we cannot define or give details as we don't know when starts what. But I'm quite sure that if we are continuing this Sense series of webinars, this will be then one of the breaking news once we have the confirmation and it's clear what the timelines could be in scope. Maybe this as an information. When we mentioned today a new version, revised version of the CA, maybe we should be more careful with that. It doesn't mean that we have a plan or something to accept, adopt for CA 2.0, things like that. Yeah. Please take it this somehow at this kind of consideration. Yes, back to you.
yeah.
Yes, thank you, Yves. I don't know, do you see other questions that we think we should reply now?
We have some SBOM, software bill of materials questions. Um, our participant Carsten already give an answer. Srinath, you have something to add on the questions regarding SBOM covered in the standard requirements, or
Answer to the S1 question from S1, S1 checking the class.
what is
Okay,
this? Yeah.
SBOM is there is a requirement already incorporated in broad vertical, and this will be normally referenced in the vertical drafts. So, because it's part of the CRA requirement. So definitely it is addressed in for broad vertical, and we have the applicability for each of the verticals.
Mm,
And checking is it in the class 6 of, okay, in this presentation I covered only the until technical requirements. So class 6 is conformance assessment, conformance test. So right now it's not a part of the presentation. It will be in the future webinars, because we have just sent the approach and the assessment part to the EC to get clarification, and we have the common understanding between us. And then once it's clarified and it's solid, and then I will come up with the presentation on class 6 that will clarify all your questions. I think Pawan has raised this many questions on stage 2. You know, yeah.
you just meant on 18th? Or
Not on the 18th, after the assessment
yeah,
from EC.
okay.
Yeah. Because it will take 5 weeks, right? So it will take more.
Because maybe we can also bridge here for some information. Everything that we started today with the insights Srinath has given. We have planned a deep dive session, as you might have seen in the announcements, for the 18th of May. So maybe we can also take questions, things from today on board, which maybe go more to the deep dive, and then we have a chance a bit of have customized information coming from this webinar and then being answered in the deep dive. What I'm trying to say, if you find the time and you enjoyed the webinar today, of course, then Srinath will give us a deep dive on 18th of May. So the next step coming from here. Yeah, just doing a bit of promotion at the same time.
Yes, thank you, Yves. I will also include the link to the deep dive session of the 18th of May in the follow-up
Mm.
email, so people can still register if that should not yet be the case. Do I understand it correctly that we wrap up the webinar here?
Yep.
And if yes, I would like to launch a feedback poll for the attendees. It's just a short poll with 3 questions that we ask you to fill in, please. And with the answers, we try to improve our webinars and the deep dive session of next time for the future, of course. So thanks a lot for filling in the poll. And then, as promised, we will share with you the presentation as well as the recording of this webinar and include also the link to the deep dive session. And then all I can do is thank a lot Srinath for the excellent presentation and the follow-up on the questions. And also thanks to Yves for he is a part of answering questions.
All credits go to Srinath. We're happy
Yes.
to have such a good expert also in the position of rapporteur, doing the coordination with all CRA related TCs towards then TC65X. I have shared my email address in the chat as well. As we said a few times, we take on board and will come back. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I will then check these and confirm with Srinath, and we will try to give the best input from our output today to the deep dive then in the end. Yes.
Thank you, everyone, and
Okay.
thank you for your participation. Thank you, Eves and Els, for organizing this, and thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.